Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name's Tammy Simon, and I'm the founder of Sounds True, a multimedia publishing company in Boulder, Colorado, and I'm so pleased. Thank you. So pleased to welcome you here this evening, discovering our true purpose with Eckhart Tolle. Tonight's event is also being broadcast online, and we have people watching in over 40 different countries, in all kinds of time zones. People watching in places like Kenya, Serbia, Sri Lanka, Macau, Greece, Israel, Austria, India, Oman, Hong Kong, Guam, I'm not going to read them all, Romania, the Philippines, Argentina, and Croatia. And we'd like to welcome all of our online viewers as well. Eckhart Tolle has quite a unique destiny as a person. In his 20s, he found himself depressed, so depressed actually that he even thought of taking his own life, suicidal thoughts. And then something truly remarkable happened, which was a revolution in his being, a total revolution, a shift, spiritual awakening, where he moved from identifying with being a separate person to the vast, infinite space of being. Of human consciousness, that more and more people would begin to have a similar experience to the one that he had of spiritual awakening. And when I first heard Eckhart introduce this idea, I have to say I was dubious. I didn't see a lot of evidence for this. But now, in 2008, some very interesting things have occurred. And as I said, Eckhart Tolle has quite a destiny. In the beginning of this year, Oprah Winfrey held up his book, A New Earth. And from having a couple 100,000 copies in print, suddenly over 3.2 million copies of the book are in print. On top of that, for the very first time, she decided to host, the very first person ever that she decided to host, a 10-part online series. Over 1 million people are having the experience, like we're having right here tonight, of watching Eckhart and experiencing the transformative power of his presence. It's truly a remarkable time. I think of Eckhart, and this is a little odd, but it's true, as almost a hole in the universe that this experience of the awakened state is pouring through, this stardust of awakening that is showering on all of us. In just a moment, this great transmitter and way shower will be joining us. And he's asked that instead of clapping, that we greet him in this vast space of being, our own sense of presence, our own sense of inner stillness. Eckhart will, of course, use words, but he's really using words to point to an experience that's beyond words. And what he's asking as we now create the space for him to come and join us is that we actually enter that space beyond words and through words in ourselves. So that's what we'll do. Please turn off your pagers, cell phones, and any other noise-making devices you might have, and be in this vibrant, alive, quiet place. And Eckhart will be joining us in just a moment.
Welcome to our meditative evening. Also for some of you watching elsewhere, it may not be an evening, it may be morning or afternoon. But whatever it is, one thing we can be sure of, it's the present moment. All there ever is. And as we sit here, I'd like to suggest, first of all, that you make sure that you're still breathing. That's a little step. Am I still breathing? Just a second, let me check. Yes. In that moment, when you check whether you're breathing, your attention moves away from thinking and begins to move into the body. Of course you're breathing, otherwise you would have collapsed. But mostly, of course, breathing is unconscious. So a very easy step of getting out of being trapped in the continuous mental noise that we call thinking, being trapped in there and being dragged along by every thought that arises. Stepping out, moving your attention voluntarily, not because life has just given you a hard knock. That is another way of getting out of the mind. But simply say, okay, am I still breathing? And in that moment attention moves away from thinking. There's a tiny gap, because in the moment of checking whether you're breathing, you're not thinking. If you're thinking at that moment, you still don't know whether you're breathing or not. So it's only if you stop thinking, it might only be a second or two. And so, thousands of years ago already, some people discovered that, and then they made it into a meditation. Breath awareness meditation, anapanasati, etc., etc. But it starts with, let me see if I'm still breathing. That's the mini meditation. Anything, when you step out of the noise of thinking, that's meditation. And it is also a different state of consciousness that arises. So let's do it again. Am I still breathing? Yes. And then perhaps you feel a certain aliveness, because you've put some attention into the body. You feel a certain aliveness within. Hard to describe, because it has no shape as such. Somehow you know that you are alive. That's another way of taking attention away from thinking. And so these things become an anchor for being present. Your attention in the now. And that is the new state of consciousness that sometimes in ancient Indian teachings is called the fourth state, because there's dreamless sleep, there's the dream state, there's the ordinary waking state, which is the thinking state, and there's a state of presence in which you have risen above thinking. Sometimes it happens to you accidentally. There are moments in your life when you feel suddenly, without any reason, a deep sense of peace and aliveness in the background. Nothing much has happened. Or you are doing some kind of physical movement that requires your full attention, so that there isn't much room for thinking anymore. You're climbing a mountain, for example. Any thought, and you would slip off the wall, fall off the wall. And as you climb up this mountain, suddenly you feel intense aliveness and presence, and it feels good. The goodness of being alive. And then you come down the mountain, and the moment the danger passes, the mind starts again. And then the mind says, oh, you have to do that again. That was so good. A shock can also do it. Or something suddenly appears in front of you and don't quite know what it is, something entirely new, say an animal as you're walking in the forest or something. So suddenly there's a moment of just presence. The mind hasn't come in and said, oh, this